All right, so welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy. Your host, Omar. And today I want to talk about something that's a little bit more dear to me when it comes to leadership, which is the coaching aspect of things. Uh, one of my biggest irks when it comes to coaching is the fact that leaders don't want to invest time. And it's not just like sales leaders, right? People out in the field. We're talking about companies in general, executive personnel. They want all of this change, but they're not willing to invest in the change. And when they do invest in the change, it's a half-ass type of investment where it's typically like a one-day training, and they don't ensure that it's facilitated through the process, that it's continuing on, right? It's like, all right, we did this, you guys should know this. They don't have any true follow through. I want this change, I want this change, I want this change. But where's the process for this change actually happening? And it's one of the most painful things to see as a leader. It's one of the most aggravating things to see as an employee because you're wondering where's the development? How am I going to grow within the organization? They want the growth, they want people to stay, they want employees to stay, but yet it's like you're not investing them. You're not putting time and effort into training these people up, developing them. There is a difference between, how companies were 50, 40, 50, 60 years ago compared to how they are now. And one of the biggest reasons is obviously it has a lot more to do with like the economics, taxes, for instance, because when you're being taxed 99%, unless you invest into the organization, invest into the business, that makes a big difference, right? Now it's like instead of putting people that understand that field and actually have true experience in that, it's like, hey, they're just throwing people out there. Hey, I just graduated or I just left this organization and they do consulting. Sure, I'll listen to what you got to say. And they come in, do a quick half-ass change or recommendation without truly understanding the dynamics of the organization or the dynamics of the teams. And they make the change that's been recommended. And in the short term, yeah, you'll see a change, you'll see an improvement, but it's not sustainable over the long term. And that's the most aggravating thing. Because, like, if you're trying to make that change, if you're trying to ensure that it stays for the long term, you need people that understand the organization, understand the culture. And what that means is they understand the good and the bad within the organization. They know where the organization has to make some changes and pivots and shifts compared to somebody from the outside coming in and just being like, hey, uh, I think this is what we need to do. It's like, no. Okay. I've been through it. If you guys have heard me talk about it, I've gone through, McKinsey consulting with one of the organizations I was with. And even though they did a 6 month long uh, consultation with the organization, it wasn't like we saw them very often in the field. Yeah, they may have been out and about, but they're just getting, you know, bit-sized pieces of information and they're going to make judgment calls. And the funniest thing is that change was not sustained because it wasn't truly developed to be there from the ground up with the organization to the point where, you know, some of the people I still talk to from them, it's like, yeah, it's trash, right? Not things have changed dramatically. They don't do a lot what was implemented. And there's just a lot of aggravation around leaders within the organization because they're not training and developing others. They're not investing time. And that comes from the top down because they don't care about the bottom line, which is the people. The organization doesn't exist without the people at the front. If you continue to churn and burn your people, you get a reputation for that, and it makes it that much harder to train people, let alone retain people, let alone hire people. Because we all know the best employees to hire are referrals from existing employees because they actually enjoy what they're doing. And the best leaders to have within the organization are those that are trained and coached up, who understand the organization, understand the processes, the procedures. And as a company, that's what I want. I want them to grow with the organization. I want them to be involved. I don't want to have to continue to keep looking for people. But that can't happen unless you're actually training and developing and investing time in people. That's the hardest part. It doesn't matter if you're in retail. It's harder for smaller companies, especially like boutique retail organizations, right? So if you do like appliance sales, if you do like AV sales, or if you have like a boutique shop, it may seem hard to do training and development. The thing is, it's not. Literally spending as little as like 15 minutes a day or 15 minutes like a week or so just focused on coaching and developing on one particular thing can mean a whole difference to somebody's growth within not just that company, but the industry itself. Like, I didn't think I would be in the retail space for like 20 years, but I ended up being in the retail space for like 20 years because of the growth that I saw. I was fortunate enough to actually have leaders who cared and would spend time to train and develop. I also spent time training and developing myself through outside means, right? Outside mentorships, mindset groups. If you guys haven't heard of my mastermind, I highly recommend looking into it. And you'd be surprised what you can learn from other people that aren't in your field when it comes to just sharing thoughts, information, best practices, and kind of having an outside group that you can just share things that you wouldn't normally share with like your friends who don't understand some of the growth aspects you're trying to achieve, right? Because we all know that. I got my friends, we all hang out, we talk. We actually just did a vision board party. I don't know if you guys ever done those before in the past. But it was something that me and my wife talked about doing, and we invited our friends, came over, and we actually learned more about ourselves, I think, in that night over some of the aspirations, because obviously it's not just work stuff, right? It's stuff you want to do in general. Um, and they learned more about me at that night. Even my wife says there's a lot of things or a few things actually I was surprised about, even though we talk like every single night, right? And it's one of those where it's like, okay, you're getting an outside perspective that normally wouldn't be there, and you're getting people with experience, somebody who you could help mentor, share some words of wisdom, and you're getting words of wisdom from people that have gone through something similar. And that's like the beautiful thing of finding outside groups, but also having a group within an organization that you can turn to and talk and mastermind about some of the changes you would like to see and essentially being able to implement some of that stuff. You would be surprised how far you can go within in an organization if you have time to be able to train and develop others. As a sales leader, it's one of the hardest things to do, especially like coming from sales, from a sole independent contributor, right? Meaning I sell, I do my stuff, my income doesn't rely on everybody else. To move into a role where you have to train and develop others, you're in charge of sales for a region, a district, area, whatever you want to call it. You need to let go and delegate and allow other people to thrive. That can only happen when you develop, train, coach, invest in them. And you'd be surprised how many people that you may know that it would just mean a lot if you could be a person that does guide or mentor somebody. Because not everybody has that in their life. You'd be surprised, especially if you're talking about positions where you're going to have a lot of entry level employees where they come in to learn about that stuff, to be able to have somebody who's going to take like that coach mindset, that coach figure persona, and help develop them into something and help them break these beliefs that they may not know could be broken, right? Like they have limited beliefs about what they can accomplish, about who they are, what kind of person they could be in the future. And I'm not saying obviously that, we're going to be the next billionaires. What I'm saying is you could break out and be a person that makes change in other people's lives, that you could help develop a person and help them grow to a point where they couldn't believe they would be there. And in 5, 10 years time, have them look back and be like, wow, that was a big change in my life. That's what it means to be a leader that develops, trains, and invests in others. And to be an organization that can do that relies on having leaders that can do that as well. So this is one of those conundrums of like, does the chicken come before the egg or the egg come before the chicken? You don't know, right? You got to try something before you can understand where you're needing to be at or you could be at. And sometimes some of the places where you would want to do that with may not be your home. You'd be surprised where some of those places would turn out being, right? Or where some of those opportunities would lie. It could be in a volunteer organization. It doesn't have to be actual work, right? It could be in any kind of thing. And that's like the hardest part. I know for me, I got kind of a taste for that when I was in college. Because I went to college, took some time off because I ended up getting an insurance license. And one of my first sales, I made as much as most people were making in a year. I was like, why do I need to finish school? Um, Needless to say, that was right before, I'm a little bit older, uh, right before the market crash of 2008. So after that happened, it was not a nice time. And I decided to go back to college. But my first time around, I wasn't involved in college or in school in high school, but in college, I ended up getting involved with student government. I joined a fraternity. I joined, I think, like a couple other organizations. I left, came back. When I came back, I was working full time. I was still part of the fraternity. I was actually an alumnus advisor for a different chapter, different campus. Um, I was a recruiter for a different organization. I was a treasurer for that organization as well. It was a PRSSA. Uh, I was still involved in like school with school government and a couple other items. But I was doing all that. The chapter I was an alumnus for too was like a couple hours away. So I was in Central Valley and I would drive down to LA to help out on the weekends. So it was a lot on my plate, but it was something that I learned to do during that time when I had left school and then ended up going back. It was a different perspective because the first time around, there was a lot of party, 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 right? It was a lot of fun, met a lot of people. I got a taste of what it was like to introduce people and help them break beliefs about themselves. Uh, and watching them grow in like a split second, introducing people to other people that could actually help them communicate with each other, right? Because they're like themselves. So it was easier for them to talk. And just seeing like aha moments uh, where they broke out of their shell. And it's like, okay, I could be myself. I could be who I want to be instead of this person I think other people think of me or want me to be. And those are one of the beliefs that you can help break as a leader, as because a leader isn't just somebody who is directly involved over somebody else, right? Leadership takes a lot of many forms. I remember one of my best friends, he used to be my boss back in the day. Uh, he had introduced me to this video. You guys can look it up on YouTube. It's called the First Follower. It's a TED Talk. It's a very short, it's like a 4 to 5 minute TED Talk. It is amazing. It is something I always bring up whenever I do any kind of presentation for groups. And it talks about how the true leadership is not the person leading the group. True leadership is in the form of the first follower, because that's the person that helps showcase to others what that individual is trying to do. Because without that first follower, that individual is just a lone crazy nut. Uh, so watch it. Surprisingly, it's an older TED Talk, but it's still an amazing talking point. Still great to learn about that. And then as a person that's also helping others, you learn more about yourself too, because you have to nurture that person, that first follower. And that's what leadership is. You're nurturing others to grow. And to be able to do that is amazing. As a sales leader or a leader in any organization, your job honestly should be to find people to replace you. Find people to replace you at your current role. If you're an area manager, if you're a district manager, if you're a regional director, VP, your role should be developing the other people in line to replace you. Because if you're getting replaced by the people that you're training and developing, that means you're also moving up within the organization or to another organization, right? Because you're bringing people on board and you're helping to develop and grow, and you're growing yourself in that respect. That's one of the amazing things to be able to do as a leader. That's what it means to be able to grow and develop and train others. It's not about having a title. It's not about being the person that tells other people what to do, right? It also means not being a best friend to everybody. Because the unfortunate thing is being truthful hurts feelings. Helping to develop and grow others means that you're going to point out some faults, but you're not doing it to be mean. You're doing it because you want to see them improve because you know they can do better. I'm not saying in that position you're never going to have to let go of people. You're never going to lose people that you wish you didn't lose. It's going to happen. There's not growth opportunity in every single organization available at the moment that that person's looking for it. But you never want to bring somebody down or hold them back from what they're capable of doing. So that to me is one of the most important things about leadership. And it's also one of the most, like I said at the beginning, it's one of the things that irks me the most about a lot of organizations and about a lot of people that call themselves leaders because they don't invest in their people. They don't train and develop their people. They think I told you this once and that's that. It's done. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be that way. You should spend time to understand where they're coming from, understand how we should develop other people. And it's going to take a learning process. If you're brand new into a leadership role, it is a learning curve because you have to break that mindset of being the individual contributor to somebody who trains and develops. And we're talking about leaders, we're not talking about managers. A manager manages a process. So if I have employees that they do is a process, right? Then that's it. Like they're working some type of, you know, fabrication line, could be, something simple that doesn't require you to convince other people to give you discounts or to take something instead of this other item as you do in subs, right? And as manager, you don't care about the process itself, right? As far as the people go, you just care that that process is going efficient. You don't care about being able to train and develop others the way that they should be trained and developed as individuals that can grow and do more than what they could be capable of doing. So that's where I make the distinction of being a leader as opposed to being a manager, right? So, guys, I want to say thanks for stopping in, catching this tidbit, right? So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.